And Stephan, please, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, welcome everyone. It's taking a few moments to take everyone in and enjoy entering our virtual temple. So last time in our last meeting in December, I had COVID and I recovered. So far, there's no after effect. And yeah, we are going to continue with the text this year, the 37 practices. And last year we covered the section until verse 18. There was a section of 6 verses where Tokme Zongpo was introducing us to the practice of lojong, of transforming problems or attitude training, how to relate to challenges, how to relate to the problems, inner and outer problems in our life. And today we start the next section, which is a few verses around the 3 kleshas. And the 3 kleshas, or sometimes they are called afflictions. They are the way we distort reality, which makes us suffer. And these 3 afflictions are attachment, anger or aversion, and ignorance, confusion on how things exist. And in this text, we look at these 3 so-called afflictions, and that's why I don't like the word affliction so much, because it sounds that they are in itself the troublemaker. But in this text, we will look at these 3, don't know how I could call them. Maybe I can use the word klesha. Then we don't know yet what it means, the 3 kleshas, and we can give that word klesha some meaning instead of using a word like attachment or anger, where we immediately feel, oh, I don't like that. I want to get rid of that. So in this text, we're looking at these 3 kleshas from a tantric perspective, where we start to discover that, yes, there is an aspect in these 3 kleshas which distorts reality and which makes us suffer, which makes us struggle. But at the same time, they have also a potential. They can be, there is an ally aspect, something which can support us, a wisdom aspect in anger, attachment, and ignorance. So it's a bit more sophisticated than in a Hinayana or Theravada point of view, where these 3 kleshas really have a bad reputation, and the practice is about somehow overcoming them or applying antidotes. So the approach in this text is a bit different. And we will start with verse 19, and in this verse it's about attachment, or the grasping aspect of attachment, because the challenge is not pleasure and delight and joy. The challenge here is to enjoy, experience pleasure without grasping. So what we are exploring today is the possibility to bring together energy and space. So the energy of desire, the energy of joy, the energy of delight, the energy of happiness. And the question is, can we relate to these experiences in a spacious way so that the vitality in joy and delight and happiness becomes available to us? And that's what I would like to start to explore a little in our first meditation. So after there's some, I can hear myself. Maybe Shaila, you can mute yourself. I have a bit of, yeah. So in this first meditation, after some arriving and connecting with our mentors and stepping really more deeply into our meeting and into this temple, I would like to invite you to connect with experiences of pleasure, of joy. And that can be simple things like enjoying a cup of tea or enjoying food. Could be also connecting with days of delight and happiness and joy. And then we will explore these experiences, energy. What is that? What is joy? How does it feel in the body? What's the energetic aspect of joy, happiness, delight, wonderment, maybe even ecstasy? And when we do that, what could happen is we also become aware of some other aspects in ourselves which create some hindrance or some obstacles to enjoy deeply. So there could be something like a feeling of you don't deserve to be joyful, you don't deserve to be happy. Or how can I be happy when people around me are sick? Or maybe you have a conditioning coming from your psychological history, like a voice. As soon as there's happiness, as soon there's joy, as soon as there's delight, there's something there, something like maybe a voice saying, yeah, wait, it will, don't enjoy it, it will lead into disaster. Or maybe in your childhood you have heard voices like, don't be so silly, don't take so much space, don't dance and jump around. So there's different ways how we cut ourselves from the possibility to, when there's something to enjoy, when there's beauty in our life, when there's pleasure in our life, that it is actually difficult for us to really relax into that, into the present moment experience of joy, into the present moment of wonderment. And it is really helpful and to become aware, how do we obstruct or hinder ourselves to, when there's joy in our life, to really bring it into our body, really feel it, really enjoy joy instead of being afraid of joy. And sometimes as Buddhist practitioner, that is that kind of suspicion, that kind of joy, pleasure, that's something bad because it's attachment. Yeah, so like kind of almost not being able anymore to enjoy a piece of chocolate because, oh, it's attachment. Yeah, so even our practice can become a hindrance to really appreciate joy, if there's joy. And then, like in the other 6 previous verses, where the main practice Tokme Zongpo suggests in challenge and problems, here the same, exploring, practicing Tonglen, the giving and taking, in moments of joy, Yeah. So, which means when there is joy, when there's delight in our life, to really breathe it in, to really open to it as much as possible, to be really present to joy with that, with spaciousness, and then sharing it. Kind of appreciating the fact it's actually a good thing to be a joyful person. It's actually a good thing to enjoy life. It's actually healthy to appreciate simple joys of life, like just breathing and eating and walking and moving your body and friendship. That is actually healthy and good, because when we allow this joyful energy into our body, we become a source for joy for others. So and that's then the idea in Tonglen. You're enjoying what we can enjoy in our life, open our eyes, our senses to joy. Where's joy in my life? Where's delight in my life? Where's pleasure in my life? Playing music, dancing, touch, nature, simple things where we not even need to spend a lot of money. And for many of us, because of our negativity bias, it's probably a really good mindfulness practice to become a joy detective. Where's joy in my life? Where's pleasure in my life? Can I pause in pleasure? Can I seek pleasure even? Yeah. So that's very different than to the Theravada approach, Hinayana approach, where we are kind of supposed to avoid pleasure because it might create problems, the problem of grasping. But the tantric view is different. In the tantric view, we allow ourselves to seek pleasure. What is pleasurable for me? And then we are transforming this pleasure into vitality, into presence, so that we become a source of spacious joy for others. And so the practice of Tonglen in these moments would be then to dive into the joy, to allow joy, delight, wonderment to fill your body, and then with the out breath, sending it out into your environment. And the obstructions or the hindrances to experience joy and delight, which might come up in this meditation now, there we apply the other aspect of Tonglen, allowing them, breathing them in, being with them. So if you feel like when you meet joy, delight, pleasure in your life, you feel guilty, you feel you don't deserve it, you are afraid of attachment. So the practice of Tonglen here would be then to breathe into these hindrances and feeling them in the body and allowing them to be there, making them part of the meditation. Okay, so let's slide into a bit more meditative awareness. So if you like, you can adjust your posture a bit. So you sit comfortable, but also with a certain awakeness, a certain dignity. So you take your seat as a Bodhisattva baby in this lineage. And you take your time. So this is really like sliding in. And if you like, you can close your eyes. Maybe that makes it easier for you to connect with your inner life. If you keep your eyes open, that's completely fine, and your gaze is relaxed. And let's take some moments to just check in. So how is the inner weather? What do you bring with you into this moment? And you allow a shift to happen from the head into the body, from being in your thoughts and being in stories, to be in the felt sense of your body. It's like a sense of sliding or dropping into your body. And you can start with like the whole body, even down into your legs and feet, and the sensation of sitting on a surface. And in this shift from the doing mode, the thinking mode, into present moment awareness, your breath, the flow of the in and out breath, can be an ally. Not in the sense of focusing on the breath. So your awareness, your attention is open, but a bit emphasizing the breath. And maybe you want to take a few deeper in and out breaths without effort, just natural breath. And with the in-breath sliding or dropping, and with the out-breath, maybe there's a possibility of some release, like the release coming with sighting. Like if you sit down on a couch after days of work, you take a break. So maybe your belly can soften a little with the out breath. And your shoulders. And imagine the breath and your awareness to be like an embrace, like hugging your inner life. Welcoming the guests in the guest house of your body. And of course, thoughts continue to arise. There's space for them, but as best as you can, try to not emphasize them so much. Instead, bring the felt sense in your belly, in your hands, in your chest. Just that feeling of aliveness in your body. And it's not necessary to label those sensations or go into stories. So if there's tightness somewhere, then we just let it be what it is. If there's tiredness, just let it be as it is. And if there's flowing energy, comfort in somewhere, you also allow it to be. And then an appreciation that we are doing this together, that we're breathing together. In our virtual temple, in our virtual Gompa. Nobody is alone. So you do less and less. Allow yourself to come to a place of rest in the midst of your experience as it is. Kind of settling in the middle of the storm. The eye of the storm. And breathing there. If you notice that you want to get rid of something or you want to experience something else than you experience right now, see if with the out breath you can relax the grasping. It's like a sense of opening your fist. Allow yourself to slide into a spacious present moment awareness where everything can just come and go as it comes and goes. And only in these moments when you realize that you emphasize the stories, the mental images a lot, you make this little gentle movement back into the trunk of your body, into the breath, into present moment awareness. And rest. Return to rest. There's nothing to do. Nothing you need to understand, nothing you need to do right or wrong. Just present moment awareness. The past exists only in thoughts. The future exists only in thoughts. And thoughts are recognized as thoughts. So as soon as you get entangled, you realize, oh, that's a thought. And you gravitate to a thought-free presence. Oh, that's just a thought. And rest. Just rest. Then into our togetherness, we invite the presence of the Buddha, the Dalai Lama, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and you, in your heart, invite your mentors, Jesus, Tara, people who embody loving kindness for you, who inspire you. And when we do that, we stay aware that through these symbols, through these images, we make contact with the qualities of our own Buddha nature. So through the symbol of the Dalai Lama or Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you make contact with the inner Dalai Lama, the inner Buddha. And feel how the whole space of our meeting, around you, surrounding you, pervading you, there is the light, the presence, the joy of awake awareness. Possible symbolized through images or voices. If you are inspired by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, you can hear him laugh and you feel him move. And more important is to feel the loving gaze in your whole body, as if you're bathing in the morning sun after a cold night, all around you. And remember, we are doing this together, so we are entering the sacred space, the sacred temple together. And every cell of your body is opening like a flower in the encouraging light, in the encouraging presence of awake awareness. Of loving kindness, of tenderness, of joy. And returning and resting and just bathing. So now in our meditation here, I would like to invite the presence of joy, of delight, of pleasure. And we can start with something which is present for all of us right now, and that's the flow of the in and out breath, the aliveness in the breath. I'm breathing, I'm alive. And maybe it's possible for you to connect with an aspect of your breath which feels nourishing and life-giving, where you can bring a sense of wonderment, maybe even gratefulness. And of course, we can't force ourselves to have certain feelings. These are just suggestions and invitations. And then you see what happens. Everything is allowed. But is it possible for you to experience the pleasure of the in-breath, like drinking the nectar of life, the life-giving, nourishing aspect of the in-breath? And then there might be also some pleasure in the out-breath, a sense of letting go, a sense of relaxation. Of course, there might be also tight aspects of the breath, some unpleasant sensations, and those we allow to be. It's okay, it's fine. Softening and opening, and receive the breath. Each in-breath is like a blessing. The whole body is breathing. So, and then we extend that exploration of joy, of pleasure, into experiences of pleasure, of joy. So allow your mind to bring some moments of pleasure, some moments of delight or joy or wonderment, possibly from the last days, maybe from today. So little things. But also you can go further back. You know, the joy of making music, of drawing, of dancing, of touching, the joy of music, of food, the joy of stepping out into the fresh air and seeing the sky, the joy of seeing a beautiful face and a smile, and you stay somewhat connected with the breath in the background. And through different situations, or maybe one where you can easily connect with, notice the experience of joy, of delight, of wonderment, of gratefulness. And see if you can feel the felt sense in your body. How does it feel? Where is it in your body? The pleasure, the experience of pleasure, what does it do with your body? Where do you feel it? And you breathe with it. Welcoming the joy, the delight, the pleasure, and opening to the pleasure so that there's space for that energy. And what you also might experience is something which makes you tight or suspicious. Or any kind of grasping, any kind of aversion. And you allow that also to be. Just notice that. Any kind of resistance. And just allow that to be in the felt sense of your body. So the emphasis here in this meditation now is the felt sense of your body. And see if you can emphasize the flow of joy, the flow of the pleasure in your body. Maybe you can even intensify it a bit. Something you might be usually be afraid of. To really intensify it. Maybe you can allow it to spread in the body. The joy of dancing, of embracing someone, of being touched, of listening to beautiful music or making music yourself. Or where in your life to experience that kind of joy, maybe in some physical activities, in your yoga practice or in your fitness training. And allow this joy to infuse this moment. Breathing with it. And staying spacious. Bathing. If it's difficult for you to connect with a felt sense of joy in this moment, and of course sometimes in our life it is difficult, then we breathe with that. We hold that compassionately. And so now we go a bit into the practice of Tonglen. So whatever tiny joy, whatever tiny pleasurable sensation, aliveness in your body you experience, with the out-breath, now you breathe it into our tempo. You kind of radiate it out, sharing it with the other people here in our meeting. May everyone here bathe in the same joy, even more so than myself. And if it's difficult for you to connect with a sense of pleasure or the energy of joy, be more on the receiving side. Accepting the pleasure, the joy, the wonderment, the light, which now some here in our group share with you. And take it into your body, into your heart, into your breath, with the in-breath. And then with the out-breath, sharing it back into the group. So receiving and giving the energy of pleasure, of joy, of wonderment, of gratitude. And then from our temple here, from our virtual meeting, we extend, radiating out like a strong sun, radiating out into your environment where you live, into your life. Into your relationships. May everyone experience joy, pleasure, happiness. And then for a few moments, gently sliding out of this meditation, drop the images and the words. And just rest with what is for you now. Yes, and then you take your time to open your eyes. Maybe you want to stretch your body a little, change your position. And when you open your eyes, so integrating the visual into this experience, because there can be some joy and pleasure and wonderment about seeing, seeing shapes and colors. And usually often we appreciate that kind of simple joy only when we start to lose that capacity. But I imagine that most of us here probably can see still. We will lose it for sure at one point. And just looking, just being able to see can be a source of a quiet joy, of a quiet contentment, a quiet wonderment. And if you look at the screen and you look at the other people, so many wonderful, beautiful faces. And you can see it. And there can be joy there. So I will continue to talk a little bit about joy and awakening joy, making joy part of our practice. And if you have a question, then you can just unmute yourself or write in the chat. But towards the end of the session, I will also give some space in case you want to make a comment or ask something. So when we explore joy, happiness, pleasure, and I think the most important point I want to make today, and I already made the point, I just want to repeat it, is that in this text, from a tantric point of view, we don't see that these experiences as problems. So we don't see pleasure, joy, delight, wonderment, silliness, ecstasy as problematic in itself. But the question is more, how can I relate to this experience in my life so that it doesn't lead into grasping, so it doesn't lead into struggle. So that's a question, and just to ask that question, I think, can make a big difference, particularly if also from your psychological background and from your spiritual upbringing, that there was, and then also within more Hinayana teachings who emphasize more the Hinayana view. If you have more a background of that, or it's also strong in the Tibetan tradition, this part, in Mahayana view. So it could be that that there is something in you suspicious or afraid of joy and seeking out joy and seeking out pleasure. And that, I think, just thinking and exploring like that, oh, maybe there's a possibility actually. I think that can make a difference in our practice and in our life. So when we explore joy, I think it might be helpful in the beginning to distinguish conditioned joy and unconditioned joy, or hedonistic happiness, happiness with a cause, and genuine happiness, happiness without a cause. So happiness with a cause, or conditioned happiness, or hedonistic happiness, is the happiness or the joy, the pleasure which arises when something pleasurable is happening, when things are going okay. Yeah? And the thing with hedonistic happiness, with conditioned joy, is it passes, it comes and goes, because it relies on condition. So one problem with that kind of joy is that, or that kind of happiness, is it doesn't last. It's not bad, and we can all pray that all beings on this planet might experience a sufficient level of that kind of hedonistic happiness, that conditioned joy. Yeah, may every being experience that level of happiness, that level of joy. So one challenge with that kind of joy is that it is impermanent. It passes because conditions change, and we try to keep it. We get there's where the grasping comes in. We try to have more of it. We get afraid that it will pass, and so that's one part. How to bring more space into the experience of conditioned pleasure is to accept the impermanence, the non-static nature of that pleasure, that we can't hold it. That doesn't make it less beautiful, maybe even more so. Yeah, because I mean, imagine you have that same kind of pleasure every day in the same intensity. That becomes very boring, and then it might be even turning into a source of discontentment and unhappiness. Yeah. So part of learning to transform this experience of conditioned pleasure is to accept and recognize the impermanence and their non-static nature. And then and that can help us to actually to be more present to them, because they can be available only in the present moment, and we don't know how long they last. I got a little teachings many years ago which stick with me from a friend of mine from Barcelona, and she said, if there is a sun ray, sit in it. Yeah. So if there's a ray of sun, sit in it. Yeah. And this was a woman who experienced incredible suffering in her life. So that's, that was a kind of lightning bolt for me. Like, yes, if there's a sun ray, sit in it, soak it in, enjoy it, be with it, breathe it in, and then do it for all of us. Yeah, enjoy the sun ray of today for all of us. If you want to contribute to the life of others, and even for your meditation practice, it's good to feel good. The other kind of a little difficult part of that conditioned joy is it's not really the water we are looking for. It's not really it. I mean, it's a bit satisfying. It's a bit, there is something there, and we can appreciate that and transform it as an ally into our practice. But none of those fleeting experiences will bring us home, will really quench the thirst of seeking in us. Yeah. And we have tried it. Yeah. So we are trying to squeeze something out of hedonistic pleasure, which is not there. Yeah. The sense of, the longing towards wholeness, towards healing, towards contentment, the longing to come to the end of seeking will never ever relax through hedonistic pleasure. It's impossible. But we are fooled by it. So we can spend our whole life running in the hamster wheel, in the rat race of shopping, of entertainment, of having nice experiences, going through nice journeys, looking at nice places, listening to beautiful music, and it's never ending. It's forever. And in the Buddhist cosmology, that's called samsara. It's running around on that level of hedonistic pleasure and never coming home. And as soon as we have a moment of hedonistic pleasure and we enjoy it, our mind immediately, maybe after a day or maybe after 10 minutes, goes and looks and says, okay, that's it. That's what is that. So what's next? Can I have more of that? Can I have more intensity? So where the problem, where the challenge lies here, looking at verse 19, which I will do tomorrow, is how can we transform these fleeting experiences without bringing the grasping into it. One definition in the, not definition, the function of attachment in the Buddhist psychology, the function of attachment is that it exaggerates the positive qualities of the object we are attached to. And so we project into those experiences something which is not there. So the other part, the other kind of joy, happiness is Alan Wallace calls it genuine happiness. It's it's the unconditioned happiness. And so that is a joy, a contentment, a stillness, a fulfillment, a peace, which you could say comes from inside. It's not, inside, outside. It's kind of a provisional point of view, yeah. But just to make it sense, to give some sense of what I'm talking about. So it's a contentment, a wholeness, a happiness, which is available at any moment, and which has no causes. It's causeless. It doesn't come and go. So that's that kind of happiness, that kind of contentment, that kind of peace, which through our practice we want to make contact with or become more familiar with. And in our practice, we want to heal the different layers of our condition and the identification with the narrative self, which prevents us to rest in that kind of happiness, in that kind of peace, in that kind of stillness. So that's so with the experience of unconditioned happiness, of a joy without cause, there's no problem there. We can make problems with everything. So, but let's say it like that. So. Conditioned, hedonistic pleasure, happiness, and joy. So how to work with that? So one suggestion is starting with that kind of approach or meditation we just did. Yeah. Opening to the simple pleasures in life, pausing there, exploring them, maybe increasing them, and practicing with and emphasizing also things which you like to do, things which bring you joy, and make that part of your practice. Well, sometimes I meet practitioners of the Buddhist tradition who at one point they give up things which used to give them joy, because it's like, yeah, it's attachment and I need to meditate, and it's a waste of time to play my music and make my drawings, and I need to do serious things, and I'm supposed to renounce pleasure and the things which bring pleasure, and that's really sad. Instead of asking, yeah, I really enjoy to play my drums or whatever, or I really enjoy to go for walks in nature, and how can I transform that and see that as part of my practice? Yeah. So my suggestion here is to become a joy, a pleasure detective. Yeah, mindfulness of joy, pleasure, wonderment, and emphasizing that a bit. Yes, and then being curious about the felt sense of that energy in your body. and bathing in it, becoming familiar with that energy. It's always there. Actually, in every movement, in yoga, in dancing, in walking, in every movement, there is an aspect, because when prana, the life's energy, when chi flows, there is a pleasure in it. Yeah? In breath, there is a pleasure in it. We just need to be curious about it and delight in it. Where's beauty in our life, in your life? I mean, if you look at the Tibetan tradition, it's like, whoa, it's so beautiful. I mean, from the visual aspects, from the, like look in George's room. Yeah, so many symbols, so many beautiful, the art, the dance, the music. Their offerings. It's like, it's a celebration. A guru, like a guru puja, is a celebration. It's supposed to be a joyful thing, maybe even an ecstatic thing. And the Tibetans, they are so good at that. Maybe that's part of why the Tibetan monks, why many of them, they are so vital. Yeah, they have that, they enjoy their tea and their food, and they enjoy other people. That's really like the kind of tantric flavor within the Tibetan tradition. That richness, that beauty, that celebration of outer forms of movement. So, and then I said that, become curious about what's in you sabotages. What is that? And welcome that. Be curious about that. The little girl, the little boy, what did he or she hear when she was joyful? Depending also on the culture where you're coming from. There is some cultural beliefs, religious beliefs, or, in Christianity and Protestantic here in Europe, I can recognize that, like, in Switzerland, for example, where joy is something you're not supposed to have, because your life is hard and you need to work and you need to be productive, and don't enjoy things because life is hard and we need to work harder, and there's no time to waste for for enjoying a sunset. So that can be an interesting journey of self-discovery. And then, as we did in our meditation, with the out breath or with a prayer, it's to imagine that you are the source of happiness and joy and peace and delight and wonderment for the people around you. if there's parts of you right now for whom it is difficult to feel joy, because there's more the experience of sadness or anxiety. There's more the experience of darkness. Then, of course, this kind of meditation and exploration of joy and aliveness, it's not something we can force upon these parts. So sometimes it's just time to nurture and be with, and welcome those parts in you, those wounded parts in you, which don't trust joy, which are not open to joy. So I'm not suggesting here to kind of be violent or controlling if it's right now in your life difficult for you to connect with the experience of joy, but maybe a tiny little bit, just a tiny little bit. Just a glimpse that is a possibility, even in darkness, in fear, in grief, to have like this still a moment of taste of joy. And then another aspect of this self-discovery is to become aware of grasping, get to know grasping, also again in the felt sense of your body. Yeah, I will go into that also tomorrow. So maybe there's a question or a comment in addition to what I shared with you today.
I see Sine has her hand up. Sine, would you like to ask a question?
Yes.
Stephan, I wanted to ask you about, because there's this blanket statement about attachment being a poison. And I often try to see for myself, where does, in my experience of me liking something, wanting something, become a poison, or where it stays, as just something I can just freely enjoy without second guessing myself or thinking I'm reinforcing a bad habit.
That's the question, yeah. And I mean, I can't answer that question. It's more like is she gone? No. You shift place. It's so it's a wonderful question, but it's like a question which helps us to be curious and this, like, just like you do. You know, you said, like, I wonder. Yeah, so keep on wondering. And keep on experimenting. And when I hear that word poison, it's so horrible. I mean, you know, that's where for many people the trouble comes. You know, they hear affliction or poison, and we need to we have to understand that that is a valid aspect in the Hinayana view on pleasure. And sure, it makes sense for, you know, for certain times, or when to certain objects of attachment which bring us into trouble, to have a respectful distance to those. Yeah, so kind of, I mean, as an alcoholic, maybe you avoid pubs for a while, or the shops where you used to buy. Yeah, it's an extreme example now. But of course, on the Mahayana path, on the tantric path, as a practitioner, we want to be able to go back to the pubs and enjoy the time with our friends and help out there. Yeah, so it's not so the stepping back, which is also symbolized by the life of a monk or a nun, that's provisional. Yeah, and it makes sense. And with certain areas of our life, that might be a helpful thing to do, or for certain periods of our life, or maybe over a few lifetimes. Yeah, but it's a provisional practice. So I actually, before this session, I was kind of contemplating what kind of word I could use, but and I remember that I had one some time ago, but I couldn't find it anymore. So and that's where, I think for us particularly, it's so helpful to become familiar with the teachings, the teachings on the 5 Buddha families. And each of these 5 Buddha families is connected with one of the kleshas. So what we learn in these teachings and what we explore is that each of those energies, they have a wisdom aspect. Yeah. And that can be quite a game changer in our attitude towards desire and our attitude towards anger, particular, which is the next verse. The next verse is about anger. So the wisdom aspect in anger is clarity. Yeah. And of course, it doesn't work to try to get rid of desire. I mean, this is life force. It's the beautiful source of energy we have available as human beings. It's desire. It's connected with eros, with aliveness, with vitality.
Thank you, Stephan.
Yes.
Very
You're
helpful,
welcome.
because I also really appreciated your advice to, go into the felt sense, because sometimes I think, like, thinking I can convince myself whether something is good or not, or whether, I am being attached or not being attached. I feel like I can just talk myself in and out of things. Whereas I think just a reminder of the felt sense of the body, like that, I feel I can trust.
Yes, right. And if one becomes curious about that, and then you start to identify the grasping energy. You start to know it. You don't need to think about, oh, am I attached or not? You feel it in the spot. But also, when one identifies grasping and attachment, yeah, so what? It's not. I mean, if it's not like to sugar, yeah. So because that's because then you would harm this body, this sacred temple of your body, through sugar or whatever. Yeah, but I mean, we are humans. And what you're aware of, so what you're aware of, if you become aware of certain habits, of certain grasping in certain situations with certain objects, what you're aware of loses its power, just through the awareness of it. That's a beautiful discovery of a kind awareness, a curious awareness. What you're aware of, because when you're aware of something, there's more and more space for that which is aware. Yeah. So you start to kind of become more. You step more into the spaciousness, into presence, into awareness itself. So what you're aware of helps you to become liberated of that what you're aware of. That's maybe at the end kind of a last addition to that. So there's some. Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. Just in addition to the meditation we just did, and this is something in the commentary of Ken McLeod, which he suggests, and that is at one point in this exploration of desire, of pleasure, to ask the question, what is aware? What is aware of that desire, of that pleasure? Yeah. So the kind of self-inquiry question, which if you haven't done self-inquiry or Mahamudra initially doesn't make really sense. Yeah, but we have talked about this shift before, and we will do it again. So it's like a pausing and then following that question into the mystery of the nature of your mind, the mystery of consciousness itself. And this is actually a really important, it's an important skill we start to develop in tantric practice. So, because the idea in tantric practice is it's better, it's more powerful to meditate on emptiness with a joyful mind. So one thing which we train in the 4 levels of tantric practice, starting with Kriya Yoga Tantra to highest Yoga Tantra, this 4 levels of tantric practice. So what we start to explore there is to be spacious with more and more intensive levels of pleasure. So we start with, like gazing at someone we are attracted to, or sitting in front of the chocolate cake. So that's the first level. And then learning to be spacious with that pleasure, exploring, giving rise to that energy of pleasure without grasping, relaxing the grasping. And then from that more open way of being, that more joyful and more vital, more energetic kind of being, to meditate on emptiness with that kind of mind. So that's one of the purposes of tantric practices is to increase our capacity of that. And in Ken MacLeod's commentary, that meditation on emptiness is kind of introduced or triggered through that self-inquiry question. So what is aware? What is aware of the pleasure, and what is aware also of the aspects of myself who sabotage my enjoyment of pleasure? So what is aware? And tomorrow we will explore that shift. You can describe it as a shift a bit more. Yeah. So let's take a few minutes to share the positive energy of this meeting, or as sometimes it's called dedication. Share the merits, the positive energy. So if you take a few moments to just appreciate that we have been taking the time to explore this, all the conditions which needed to come together. How fortunate we are that we have opportunities like this. And if possible, see if you can feel the presence of the other people in this virtual Gompa, that we are together, that there's a togetherness here called Sangha. Yeah, and then whatever positive energy arose for you in this meeting, maybe something you want to take with you and explore more deeply. So together, from our meeting here, from our Gompa, from our temple, we radiate out joy, pleasure, and we can combine it with a bit of a wish or prayer. So may everyone, may all beings have sufficient access to hedonistic pleasure and joy. And then more important maybe, more crucial maybe, may all beings, all living, feeling beings, may they make more and more contact and have access to unconditioned happiness and joy. Genuine happiness and joy. And may all beings have causes may they have the causes and conditions to discover genuine happiness, the kind of happiness which is indestructible and which is available to everyone, including everyone here in this moment, in the present moment. It doesn't need anything. It's already whole, it's already complete, it's already pure. So may all of us and all other living beings, feeling beings, may they wake up from the trance into the experience of genuine happiness. Okay, thank you very much. Be well. Homework is to be a pleasure detective tonight. I know you have still quite some hours today. So for me, it's soon time to go to bed. But so a pleasure detective is, mindfulness of pleasure. So where's pleasure? Where's joy? And pausing, maybe even seeking out. What kind of pleasure can you seek out today? Okay, so see you tomorrow. Bye.
Thank you, Stephan.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Stephan. Very
Thank
joyous
you.
teaching.
Thank
you, everybody. See you all
Thank you so
tomorrow.
much. Good night.
Good night.